I'm Ranjit. I lead product for Stripe in the UK and Ireland region. We in most of these events, we just wanted to make sure Stripe doesn't do a great job of communicating the number of things that we ship. We do a great job of shipping stuff, but we also need to tell the world about it. I think that part we can do a lot better. So as part of that, we were discussing having a product update session, just given the timing of the year, looking back in 2024, telling you a few interesting things that we shipped, and then also giving you just a sneak peek of what we are going to be working on in 2025, more from a conceptual perspective. So if you have any interest or questions on those topics, I'm around to discuss after as well. So for the first talk, so we've split that into three parts. So as I mentioned, the first one would be a quick recap of some of the cool things that we launched recently. We'll also talk to you about what we're working in 2025. And then before I close off my section, I'll do a quick demo of a recent product that we launched called Recipient Payouts. Still a working title, so definitely recommend. If you have recommendations, I'm all ears on naming, please. Uh, and then I'll hand it over to the next talk to continue. So before we jump into our product update, I just want to reorient everybody around how Stripe internally classifies all of our products into groups. So the first one to the right of the slide you would see is payments, which is probably what all of you guys are familiar with. These are all our product offerings on the online side of the payments, omni-channel with terminal, things like local payment methods, and all of those product offerings get rolled up into this first payment section. Still a large portion or large section of our overall product offering. And then second is connect and money movement. This, if you're familiar with marketplaces and SaaS platforms, would be a very well-known product to you. This is a 10-year-old product that's been around for as long as the concept of marketplaces and SaaS platforms have, and are used by a lot of the major SaaS platforms. That has adjacent product offerings like embedded finance, like issuing, treasury, capital, and others as well. Again, gearing more towards the platform and marketplace ecosystem of the world. The third one to the bottom right is revenue and data. This is where you're seeing a lot more of our recent ships come in. These are things like billing, which is our product for managing and handling recurring payments. There's invoicing, tax, and a bunch of other data tools like Sigma and others that also fall into this category. And lastly, there's the platform section, which is essentially on horizontal across all of our product offerings. This is where you see things like the sandbox, all of our dev tools kind of fall into this bracket that are not necessarily tied to a single product, but things like the dashboard and others that work more horizontally across all of our product areas. In terms of what we've launched in each one of them, starting with payments, it was a big year for terminal in EMEA. So for context, when we refer to EMEA, these are all of the countries that we support here in Europe, UAE, and parts of parts of Africa through our Paystack offering, although Paystack isn't featured in these lists. That's generally our coverage in EMEA overall. The first thing that we launched in Terminal last year is around tap to pay. So support for tap to pay on both iPhone and Android. It's generally available in the UK and in private preview in the rest of the EU and different parts of EU as well. So you will find all of this in our docs. We also launched local payment method support for the first time on terminals. So if any of you are familiar with the French market or the German market, you'd know about Card Bancaire, which is that local card-based payment rail, as well as Girocard, which is a similar equivalent in Germany. So those are our first LPM offerings on terminal that we launched last year, and we're getting a lot of traction on those as well. Again, staying within payments, the local payment method offerings, which are quite important to Europe in general. We've had a bunch of launches of new LPM support last year. Namely, we have Amazon Pay, Revolut Pay, which I know is quite popular here, Alma in France. We also have Rashnang, which is the open invoicing product in Germany. Pay by Bank in the UK has gone to general availability last year. So this is our first open banking or our venture into open banking based payment methods in Europe. We're also looking at other markets to support that this year in 2025. And then the one that I'm excited about in payment methods is the payment method A/B testing tool that allows you to essentially answer questions like, what if I turn a payment method on? particularly things that are more expensive, like buy now, pay laters, for example. A lot of questions that we used to get were around what is the ROI we should expect. The premium, some of them come with the premium in terms of pricing in general. So a lot of our users, big and small, have been asking questions around how can we see the ROI on actually turning a Klarna on or an Affirm on or an Afterpay on. We've gotten that question enough times. We decided to productize it and put it in the dashboard. So you can do it yourself. You can just turn it on if you're using any of our hosted surfaces, and then run a statistically significant test. It'll give you the results within the dashboard, nice UI and everything. You can decide whether to turn on a payment method or turn it off. Uh, It's not just limited to buy now, pay later. It's across all of our payment methods. And then moving further down, I think we've 2024 and also a big portion of 2025, you will see the theme of multi-processor support be front and center on all products that we build. In 2024, we launched support for Vault and Forward, which is essentially our card-based solution that where you can vault cards at Stripe and then forward them to another processor for downstream processing. We are going to be expanding that much further this year with the full orchestration capabilities as well. And then finally moving on to Connect and money movement. We launched Capital for the first time in Europe, in UK. We're looking in 2025 to expand that to other markets within Germany and France as well. Unified accounts and also accounts V2, which I should mention is the next talk, which you should definitely listen in on. That's going to be a lot of our future product development is going to be leaning on that side, and you'll see a lot of interesting things that will come out this year on that front. And then finally, more embedded components for Connect. So think of hosted JS elements that you can embed into your own workflows, where you have everything from onboarding to risk management to viewing transactions, all directly from the Stripe interface show up in your own domestic system. And then in revenue and data, as I mentioned, this is a big year for multiprocessor. So our billing, our subscription product billing has become multiprocessor supportable. So if you have, let's say, if you want to use Stripe's software capabilities in being able to handle subscription payments, make intelligent retries and so on, but prefer to use another processor either for coverage reasons, latency reasons, or even just pure cost reasons, you would be able to do that now. This has support both for cards and also other LPMs that we're also developing. So this is going to be a much more mature suite in 2025 as well. In addition to that, we also launched Sigma Assistant. This is an interactive way of trying to get Stripe to tell you how much sales you've made in your dashboard without having to write a single query. It is also an assistant that can help you write your own queries on which you can optimize and modify. So that's more of the three product areas that I mentioned. In terms of the platform investments, the first thing I'll touch on is around developer workbench. This I'm sure the team, Ben and team have had a fair amount of content on, so you may be familiar with this already. It's getting some great feedback in the developer community for us. And then the part that I'm actually most excited to talk to you about is agentic workflows and Stripe support for agentic workflows. The talk that Ben mentioned later on, the third one in the line, those are some of the examples where we're seeing quite unique ways in which users are able to embed Stripe's action components, so things like charges, payment attempts, payment links, and others into their agentic workflows. You'll see a very nice demo of that. I'm also excited about that one, so definitely stay tuned for that. That's just one example of how we are actually seeing the shift from AI being predominantly a conversation-based and search-based product so far, and then now we are giving with these type of Stripe components being embedded into those flows. It's giving the ability for them to make decisions, action decisions on your behalf, and then do simple things like order that book, for example, or order your vacation or order your flight tickets and so on and so forth. So that's just the start of what we're seeing. I'm sure there's be more use cases that both our developer community like yourself and our broader user base will be coming out with next year. And to look forward into 2025, I wasn't able to share our entire product roadmap because I wasn't allowed to. But what I did do is like synthesize some of our key launches that you will see next year into four key themes. So the first one, as I mentioned earlier on, is multi-processor support. You will see more of that this year, both across our payments offering as well as our revenue offering. So similar examples that I gave to you around billing and payments with Vault and Forward, you're going to see a lot of that, a lot more investment in that area and a lot more announcements that will come further down the year during our sessions event later on in May, and also the subsequent tour events that we have. The second one is new and exciting money movement and embedded finance capabilities. These are some of the capabilities that you may have already seen Stripe build in the US. We are porting some of that over here, as well as building new ones that are native to Europe in general. So think of money storage, money movement, and so on. Everybody knows Stripe can accept payments with multiple payment methods and most options that exist under the sun. What we haven't been doing a great job of is giving you the options of storing or more options of storing those funds on Stripe, managing those money workflows on Stripe, and then paying out to third parties directly from your Stripe balance. So we've gotten a lot of user feedback on having multiple workflows being able to do that, or you guys having to integrate with multiple providers to be able to do it. This will effectively bring all of those end-to-end workflows into one platform. And oops, sorry, jumped ahead. The third piece that we'll be launching is just, it's probably more obvious, it's just more payment methods. There's the more we launch, the more we realize we have to cover in terms of payment method breadth. So we just keep launching more. We have a scalable platform that allows us to launch in at least the, I'd say, double digits a year in terms of payment method coverage. So we'll be seeing a lot more payment methods, even fairly new niche ones like we released recently launched the buy now pay later payment method that is specifically geared towards B2B. So something similar to maybe a reverse receivables lending and so on. So we're seeing a lot of those new payment methods come in. So we have a scalable way of launching them now. So you'll see a lot more of that in Europe as well. And then finally, obviously, product quality, more LLMs, more improvements on developer experiences and developer tooling are in the pipeline. With that, I will switch over quickly to the demo I've been mentioning. So Recipient Payouts is our first venture into what we define as V2 API endpoints, as well as our first standalone third-party payout product in the UK and in the US as well. It's essentially a way for you to keep the money that you made on Stripe through the acquiring process, store it on Stripe, and then give you a way for you to pay that to third-party recipients, either domestically or cross-border via their bank account details, without a lot of KYC. So just to start off with, you'll be familiar with this view. This is our standard Stripe dashboard. I'm in sandbox mode right now. Once you click on payouts, you will see, and then you'll be redirected to your overall payouts page that has all of the list of details. The starting point for this is on balances. And this is where you'll start noticing some key differences. So far, you've been able to, you will have access to the payments balance, which is on the top part of the screen. But what we are starting to add is this recipient payouts balance at the bottom. The distinction here is your payments balance is what we call acquiring money or your payment initiation money. And then the recipient payouts balance or the payout balance is actually e-money that Stripe issues on your behalf, which means that while on the payments balance, you have a restriction of storing funds there for up to 90 days, after which they have to be paid out. On the recipient payout balance, that restriction does not exist because this is all e-money. And you can store this here for an indefinite time for either your own internal purposes or to pay out a third-party recipient. And this comes with its own sort code and account number or routing number and account number in the US. It essentially acts as your own pseudo treasury account where you can send money in externally. You don't have to use your payment balance to top up your payout balance. That's why I was mentioning this as a standalone payouts product, which enables you to fund your storage balance account from an external account as well, which is what we will do right now. So if you click on add money, it'll give you a few different options. So if I had some balance on my payments funds, I could have selected that and then either selected an automatic way of splitting that revenue in, or just manually send some money over. Given that I don't have any money in my payments balance, I'm going to select external funding. And this is where I mentioned, given that this is sandbox, obviously we have a lot of the details abstracted, but you have the access ability of sharing the sort code, account number, and the account name with your external banking partner or with an external customer who can send you money. And then with that, you effectively get what we call an inbound transfer to be made to your payouts balance. I'm just going to add £100. I mean, it's all fake money, so might as well. No, this demo is actually me sending Ben money. So even if it is fake money, I still am a bit stingy on that. So, so, so that's when you carry the P&L for the market, you tend to think all money is real money. Uh, so it's essentially that. So what we've done is now an external funding. So this is a simulation of you sharing the sort code and account number details over to your external bank and then pushing what was unfortunately just £100 over into your balance. And now for the next step. Now that you have a balance in your storage balance, the next step is to basically add a recipient. And this is where in the directory section, you would previously already see customer objects. These are customers who are actually paying you money. Recipients are the ones that you pay money to. And in order to add them, there are a few different ways that we can do it. The bare minimum information that you would need to add a recipient is just their email address. With that, you have a few different options for Stripe or yourself to send them a link, which will trigger what we call a hosted recipient onboarding flow, which we'll just go through, where they can provide their own details. You don't have the overhead of asking them their bank details over the phone or through an email and making sure they're correct, validating, and so on. You can just put the onus on the recipient or your customer itself, and then they could do it for you. And for that, I will just add a dummy email. I don't know if this is, oh, this is definitely not Ben. There you go. So I'm going to send Ben a link to add his own details. So as I mentioned, you have a couple of different options here. The first one is if I already have Ben's details with me, I'll just add them manually myself. The fact that I don't and he hasn't shared his bank details with me yet, I will have to send him a link and he will have to add it themselves. You can, again, there's two options. You can have Stripe send a generic email that the recipient can click on and add. But what we see is more popular and probably more pragmatic is just you creating your own link and then embedding that unique link in your trusted information flow. So be it an email that you have an interaction with your customer, an SMS, or in most cases, we're seeing these embedded into the apps as well. So where there is some sort of authentication that the customer can do before adding their details. So I'm just going to generate a unique link. Yeah, so that these links come with an expiry as well. So they only last for 7 days, and there are certain limits on the number of tries that or retries a customer can do in terms of adding information as well, just for security purposes. But what you will notice towards the bottom of this page is essentially we've created a V2 account object, and my colleague will tell you more about V2 accounts in the next talk. But essentially, we've created a unique ID for the recipient. And now this object will allow you to use this recipient object both in the dashboard, which is the no code experience that we're going through now, as well as the API. We have a much more fully fleshed out API experience as well, where these information objects are quite interchangeable and you can use them. And you will see this trend across as we send a payout, and every object, every transaction and instance has its own unique identifier that we can have. So I'm just going to copy this over and then simulate Ben clicking the link. Try again. Oh, there you go. So this is a fairly Stripe branded hosted recipient onboarding flow. So the first thing that your customers will see is once you send them, they will have to select whether they are a company or an individual or a sole trader. This is primarily for verification purposes and tax purposes that Stripe will collect that information. Once they do that, then the next thing would essentially be their names. So I'm just going to add Ben, and I'm just going to give him the same last name as well. and then click next. And now for the final part. So this is all the information that you would need. So all I would need at this point the recipient to add is their sort code and account number details. I'm just going to simulate that. Once they've added that and confirmed that, now it will take you to a verification page, which is essentially in the UK, there is a requirement for everybody using FPS, which is the faster payment system, to verify or confirm the name of the payee that we've entered matches that of what exists with their bank. Obviously, I've entered a fake name, so this doesn't match anything, but I'm going to go forward anyways. And then once I click submit, that's it. Now Ben has added his details, and all of the details that he has added is now available in a dedicated interface for that recipient. So we have Ben and the email address, the corresponding account ID that we saw, as well as the bank account object that has been created through the hosted recipient process. In future, we'll be adding more payment methods, so you have more options here. Right now, there's only bank, but you have card, and we're thinking about PayPal and others as well. So if you have any preferences or any requests on that side, please let me know. That's good information for us. As well as adding one payment bank account, you can add multiple bank accounts as well. So there's no restriction on how many bank accounts you can add per recipient, just that you make sure that you add unique ones and then have a way of managing them. Now for the final step of actually sending Ben some money, just given that he's been doing a good job, I'll probably send him all of the money that I have, maybe not 6,000. I should have taken your advice. That is. So I'm taking it from the recipient payout balance that we saw, sending it again by default to Ben's account that he himself has entered. And then there's the option of sending the recipient a confirmation email saying that funds have left our account or are on their way, just as a way of notification. And then click review and send. My laptop really doesn't want to send you money. There we go. Reluctant but successful nonetheless. So as I mentioned, again, we have every step of the process with unique IDs. Again, each outbound payment has its own unique outbound payment ID, which you can reference for reporting, reconciliation purposes, and so on. That's it. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this part. Happy to take any questions, either regarding recipient payouts or the product announcements.
Is there a protection in case of, let's say, you send the email to someone else, to a wrong person, right? Is there a protection from Stripe to say, if I'm going to send £1,000 to someone, by mistake, is there a protection from Stripe to say I can get that money back, or is it just lost?
So given that these are bank rails, they don't actually have a dispute mechanism inbuilt in them like cards do. So there are, depending upon the market that you're in, there are government and regulation-based protections. So for example, if you've gone through that flow and you realize you send it to a fraudster, for example, or you've been subject to a phishing scam, for instance, in the UK, you have what we call authorized push payment transaction reimbursement, where you can call your sender bank, in this case Stripe, and say you've genuinely sent a payment, but it has so happens that it's subject to fraud, and then Stripe can reimburse you up to the limit of 85K, I believe, per transaction. But those are all regulatory and market specific imposed limits and stuff, not specific to any Stripe product offering that we have.
Sorry, what is the difference between the money that you have in your balance, that is money that you earned through transactions that hasn't been sent to your bank account, and this money that you showed us, the recipient balance?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the money that you see money that you receive from accepting payments is what we classify from a regulatory term as payment initiation funds or acquiring funds, just colloquially. They are subject to different restrictions or money management restrictions and safeguarding restrictions as compared to e-money. E-money is what allows you to store funds and issue money on your name, or allows Stripe to issue money on your name and allows you to store it for longer. Whereas payment initiation funds are actually tied to a slightly different licensing regime in EU, where there are more restrictions on it in terms of how long a payment provider can hold those funds before having to pay that out. Think of that as essentially we're just the first balance is just a payment balance. The second one is the one that allows you more capabilities like storage, of course, payouts, and in future, maybe even other treasury functions.
When does the money leave the account? When I create the link or when the money is collected?
So the link that you create is essentially just for onboarding a recipient. So you could create multiple links and then not send anybody money as well. There's that option. So that both those operations are somewhat independent. Although they can be done sequentially, you can do one without the other. So if you already have the recipient details, you can send the money directly, or you can use the hosted recipient flow to actually collect those details and maybe not do a transaction after that either. So to answer your question, yes, they are independent. When the money leaves is essentially when you hit that send button. And maybe an important point to add is in the UK, we have built this product by default on FPS rails. So the money will be instantaneous as you send it, as long as it is in working hours and within the scheme limits. The recipient should receive the funds fairly quick. It also applies for the same on top-ups as well. So if you send money externally, that's why we are using push top-ups, not pull top-ups, because they work on direct debits.